Hello everyone, my name is Cheryl Tachi with Cheryl Tachi Art and JJ Bean Designs, and I am coming on here to show you guys how to grid an image that you want to paint onto a canvas. So a little bit about it. So what is gridding? So if you take an image, for example, an image that you want to use as a reference photo and you want to be able to paint it, but maybe you're not super secure about drawing it out. Some people aren't. I will be honest with you, I grid a lot of my reference photos, as well as a lot of artists do. Some artists will say that they don't and that they hand draw, and that's great, and I wish I could be like them, but unfortunately, drawing is really not my biggest, I want to say, strong point. However, I do love to paint, and I know that there's other ways that I can get the reference photo over. Now, I could trace it. I could use carbon paper and I can trace it. But part of gridding is learning how to draw, learning your proportions, but being able to get that image over to the canvas that you want. So let's start with step one. Step one is finding the image that you want. I personally go to Unsplash to get my images most of the time because they're images that you can use as reference photos that you do not have to pay to use the photos. Now, can you use Shutterstock and other ones where you pay for photos? Yes, sometimes I have to because it's not the reference that I really want to work with. When you are painting and you're trying to be a realistic painter, you do want to use a reference photo, whether it's photos you take on your own or whether it's photos that you absolutely are finding like on Unsplash, Shutterstock, or wherever, but you do have to make sure that they are royalty free, they are free to use. It is never good practice to take somebody's photo without their permission, even if you're just painting it and reproducing it. It's just really bad practice. So now that we got down that part of it, the next thing I do is I print it out on just a regular 8x11 sheet, right? So, but I try and make my photo an 8x10 on this sheet, if that makes sense, because my canvas, typically I paint with like an 8x10 or 16x20, which are they're even amounts, just separate sizes, just even amounts. So I print it out onto an 8x10 and then I do what's called gridding. That's what I'm going to show you how to do today. And we're going to do it with this, a carbon pencil. It is a charcoal pencil. I do not use regular pencils. I use charcoal. I use water soluble charcoal so that I can get the grid lines off of the canvas after. And I'll go over that a little bit more with you as we go into the gridding process. And then the image. Now today, I am actually going to show you on an image that I am teaching on I Love Hue Paints. Matter of fact, the link to the actual event will be down in the description so that you can join it. It is a free class. But this is the image that we're going to be doing, and I'm going to show you guys how we're going to grid this, and we're going to put it onto an 8x10. All right, so let's get to it. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at our image. So our image is actually an 8x10 image. That's the canvas that we're going to use is an 8x10. So this is on an 8.5 by 11 standard paper, but as you can see, there's like a little bit of a cutoff here, and that's because this is actually an 8x10 image. So the first thing I'm going to do is I remember, like, so I know I want to use probably 2-inch squares, right? So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm actually just going to go center to center first, and I want to find my center point. So my center point, if I do my 8, I say like from 1 to there, is here, and then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start at my center point. Now at my center point, I'm going to go 2 inches this way and I'm going to go 2 inches that way. I'm going to do the same thing over here. My center point, I'm going to go 2 inches this way and 2 inches that way. It will make 4 equal grid squares. Now I'm going to turn this and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to find my center point, which at 11 right here, we're going to do the 5.5, which is right here. I'm going to go 2 over, so it would be 3.5, and then another 2 over would be 1.5. It's going to give me equal squares. And again, I'm going to go over here to the 7.5 and then 9.5. Then I'm going to come down here And I'm going to do the same exact thing. So I'm going to start at 5. Whoop, let me get over here. Sorry about that. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to do, my paper doesn't want to stay still. 5.5, 7.5, 9.5. Then I'm going to go to 3.5 and 1.5. Now what I want to do is I want to take these lines and I'm just going to go ahead and connect them. Just going to make my grid. Now the gridding process works great, especially when you're doing like a high detail. This one is not as detailed, but this is a great simple one for us to just work on to show you how to get it onto your canvas. When you are doing a high detailed one, you sometimes want to do 1-inch squares if it makes it a little bit easier for you, because say within this one square here, there might be a lot more detail that you want to be able to focus on as you are transferring it over to your canvas. All right, so now that we've got our grid done, you can see that it has all these different squares in here, and these are our grids. So now let's take this and we're going to do the same thing on top of our canvas. So this canvas right here is actually a 16 by 20, which is a mimic of the 8 by 10. It's just a different size, like it's a higher version. So if we are going to do, say it is 16 inches going across this way, and it's on 2, so we need 8 squares. We want to do 4, so we're actually going to do them as 4 inches, because we have, if you look at our little tutorial that we did here, we have 4 squares going across the top. So you want to take this measurement, which is your 16 divided by 4, which is 4 inches. So we're going to make a mark at every 4 inches. And then we're going to come down here, make a mark at every 4 inches as well. And then I'm going to flip this thing sideways, and I'm going to pray that I can get this into the camera for you guys. And if it misses part of it, I apologize. But again, now if you look at our image going this way, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different squares. So if we take our 6 from our 20, actually, let me see. I don't know why I'm saying that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It actually should be 5. So we're actually going to go 4 inches as well, because they're even squares. So we don't want squares. We don't want rectangles. We want squares. So we're definitely going to do 4 across again. So we're going to do 4, 4, 4. The best way to remember is when you're doing your grid that they are even squares. So if you do 4 inches blocks on one side, you want to do 4-inch blocks on the other. And then we're going to do 4. And then again, 4, 4, 4. And then 4. Now I typically have a much larger ruler that I use to do this, but because I am just doing this quick tutorial for you guys, I didn't pull my ruler out so that it goes all the way across the canvas and I don't have to worry that I might be at a different angle. But I'm not as concerned right now because this is a simpler one. This is just a tutorial to show you. You can buy the larger rulers. I have a large metal one. You can get them over at Michael's. They have them in like a yard length, and that's typically what I have because I work with a lot of larger canvases as well. And then again, I'm going to grid this. We're going to keep going. I hope I was even. There we go. And then again, we're going to come across this side, and I'm going to pray that I am lined up. Could have used something like a piece of paper probably to go across it, but oh well. The other thing is if once you get across part way, you realize on the other side, if you start from the other side and go across, a lot of times you'll find that you were off and you can kind of self-correct it, kind of like I did right there. All right. So now we have our amazing grid system done. So let me get this into the camera and we can start drawing. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go back to my reference drawing again, and I want to focus starting from these center columns, not the outside columns. So the center columns is what I really want to work on. So the first thing I want to do is I want to look and I see, okay, on this one right here, if I look in that square, it goes across like this, and this is how I am going to transfer my image onto my canvas. And then if I look in, now let's go down to this next one, and it comes down like this. This comes down, and if I look, it kind of comes across here. Now this doesn't have to be perfect. I want to look and see where my image ends. So it comes across here. So this comes down. If you look, that leaf comes a lot of the way down. So let's go ahead and bring that down to here. And then this will go here. And then sometimes starting backwards is the way to go too. So if I see that this corner comes up like this, and I know that this is coming around like this, I know that that is my center of my flower, so that I can start pulling it in this way. And then this goes like this. Realizing that this one probably should go over just a little bit more. And this one probably goes over just a little bit more. Now say that that doesn't look where it wants to go. You just go ahead and erase that real quick. And then over here, now I realized that I was coming off a little bit. So if I come up here, I can see where my image comes up here. And then I can go ahead and restart. And I'm also realizing that my flowers are not large enough. So I want to get these out just a little bit more, a little bit bigger, a little more out there. And then same with here. And again, I'm going to look at where this meets up right here at this grid right here. And I see that that goes over here. Remember, this is just a rough. So if it's not perfect, it's okay, because we're going to be painting and you can kind of make up a little bit. This is just your area for you to get some ideas on where you want to put your focus on your images. Realizing that these probably should be a little bit bigger in here too. All right, and then I want and then as you can see here, it starts. So in this next step to clean up these lines before we actually paint, you're going to need just a soft brush, like a paintbrush, water, and a paper towel. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to dip your brush into water, and you're just going to take it along these lines, and you're just going to take just like this to help get those really dark lines off that we know we're not going to be painting. I always use a brush first because there's times that I just want to get in there a little bit more. Some people will use chalk instead of a charcoal pencil because the chalk, I'm sorry, will come off very neatly. I'm not too concerned about inside the flower because we're going to be painting. And we are painting on the outside too, but I like to get off as much as this extra that I know I'm not going to need because I want to be able to follow my image that I know that I'm going to be doing. It's just a little bit of water. And like I said, we know that we're going to be painting over these. So these just are trying to get some of the grid marks off. So as we're painting, it's not something that we have to worry about covering as much, since we already have other things that we're going to be concerned about, like our composition. I'm doing inside of these flowers a little bit, the leaves as well. And again, I'm going to come over here. Like I said, you don't have to do inside of here. I do sometimes, I don't always. I am this time, only because I want to show you in the final what you're looking at. Like I said, if it doesn't all come off and you still have some lines in there, that's fine. Now, an alternative to doing this that some people do as well, especially, so what I'll do when I do some of my wildlife images and I want to get the initial base down before I start painting, I will actually grid it onto a piece of paper instead of the actual canvas. And then I use my carbon paper to trace what I drew onto my canvas so that I've gotten it completely on there and I know what I'm doing. But I don't have to worry about getting all these grid lines actually off the canvas. But for all intents and purposes of showing you the initial, this is not a bad way to show you. Now, other people have used other substrates to do their gridding with. Like I said, some people use chalk. Some people will use regular pencil and just erase the pencil marks off. So that being said, let me show you what we can do with that. So say you wanted to use a regular pencil. This is charcoal, so it will come off. You can erase all those just as well. You can erase those right off of there. This is just a regular pencil. I actually have a pencil eraser. I actually have a putty eraser as well that I tend to use more than one of these, but this is what was sitting here. So you can use a regular eraser if that works better for you than using the water. Sometimes it does. And you're just going to get rid of all those grid lines that you wouldn't need on there for the painting. We want to keep just the image that we want to paint. Now when it's all said and done, I just brush my stuff away, and now you have your basic image drawn onto your canvas for you, and you're ready to paint. So I hope that video was super helpful for you. I showed you how we took this image that I'm teaching on an I Love Hue paint class and put it onto a 16 by 20. The lights are so bright, I don't know if you guys can see it on here. We put it onto our 16 by 20 canvas right here so that we can go ahead and paint that during our class. Now again, you can always use carbon paper and just transfer directly if you're able to print out a larger image, but sometimes it's great when you don't have the ability to print out a larger image and you can only print it on your normal 8 by 11, 8.5 by 11, and you want to grid it to put it onto a canvas to paint. So thank you for tuning in, and I hope that was super helpful for you. You can find me on all of my social media, either at Cheryl Tachi Art or JJ Bean Designs at Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and Twitter. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to click subscribe and click the button so that you get notifications when I come on, so I can show you more tips about art and paint.